Hey, what's up everybody? Looking at Chainlink here, and I'm just kind of looking at the characteristics of the wave, comparing it to this wave here when we got this reversal. So you could see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, and we got 5. Or better yet, you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we could be maybe somewhere right there. If not, then we're right here. So that's just, basically two options. We got this, or we got this. We got this. Either way, it should happen. It should come, right? You got a lot of support down here. Even in bear markets, you have a lot of strength, especially in the middle of the retrace levels, right? So here's our, first of all, Chainlink's been in a bear market since 2021. Everyone thinks it just occurred when that's not the case. It's been in a bear market since going back over here. So since then, we've had a crash, right? We've had a retrace, and now we're somewhere right in the middle here. So if you look at the bottom, if you look at the top, we're sort of towards the bottom, but let's take this line right there, and we'll put this line right there, and we'll put this line right there. So you can kind of see where we're at. We're kind of sort of in the middle. So, and then you got all of this support right in there, right in here. So, and then not only that, but we've been falling for 6 months, guys. We've been falling since August, down, 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 down. At some point, believe me, the exhaustion, even in a bear market, is going to be exhausted, right? It's going to happen. So that's why I'm looking at the sequentials. This is the time when you use sequential, is when you think, okay, the market's becoming exhausted. And look at the freaking sequential. This is an amazing setup right here, right? You have 5 waves down, and you have a 9 on the 3-day chart, which is some of the best 9s I've seen is on the between the 2 and 4-day charts. And you can see we built a very strong base right here, right? You got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. So, you got about maybe 2 weeks down here. So that's perfect. You know what I mean? So what I'm thinking here is there's 2 options. One, we have this move down, and that's our A, our B, and our C. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves up. And we have 5, 3, 5, which is 3 waves down. And then we go into our retrace. And that retrace will tell us, is it corrective or is it bearish? And that's when you decide, okay, yeah, we're continuing the bear market, or no, this thing is a 1 and a 2 and we should be going higher. Even if it's going to turn into a bigger flat, like for example, this could all be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then what that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5A. This is 5, 3, 5. This whole thing's a B. And then we go down, we take this wave right here and we put it right there for C. And then we go in expansion. But this could be a flat where it takes the top. You think we're going, but it's actually exhausted itself. And in doing so, you created a 3-way move, just like how Ethereum kind of did, I think. Let's take a look real quick here, if I could find it real fast. Right here. So you could see we have 3, 3, 3. So it could be Chainlink is somewhere right in here, right? Chainlink had 5 waves. This looks like you could say 5, but it's not 5, it's 3. So if we look at them side by side, you could see what I'm saying here, right? We got, you know, the top here, we got the bottom, right? We got, is this going to be a 5, a 3, and a 5? Something like this, right? Or was this a flat where we have boom, boom, and then we have 5 up? So that's another thing too, that it could be a flat, right? It could be you have, you know, that this was finished right here, and then this is 3 up, 3 up, and then you have 3 down, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up. So 3, 3, 5, and that's your B wave. And if we go back to Ethereum, you can see this 3-way move here probably is going 3-way move here, right? Then you spike up, then you spike up, then you pull back. Maybe we have a 3-way pullback right in here. So we're just looking at the fractals here. Now, another thing is we have this fractal here from BCB on his channel. And essentially, he's thinking, you know, this is what we're doing. And it's very, 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 very possible. But if that's the case, right, we should be somewhere in here. And then we have one more drop, build our base, and then we go into our retrace. So it's basically, it's kind of the same thing what we're thinking here on some charts, which is the fractal, which is this fractal right here, right? So, you know, it started off as a 3-way move. You know, you have an impulse and you have a 3-way move, but what happened? What happened? You flagged up right here, and then you had one more low, and it ended up being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you had 3 down, you had 3 up, and then you had 5 down. See, that's why we like Elliott wave. That's why it's one of the best ways to approach wave structure is by using numbers, right? Counting them. So 3, 3, 5. And then we had a double bottom, boom, boom, and then we kicked off the rally. So remember that. So if we go back, and let's just take a random coin like Rune here, and we just look at it. We were looking at it yesterday. And if he wants to equate that, which I think it's a good idea, you know, we got our crash, or our top rather, our crash, our retrace, right? And then we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. So is it done? I mean, you know what I mean? So I don't think it's quite there, but let's look at, so for example, this could be, you know, still right here, a little 3-way move right there. And then we drop down one more time, right? Right there, 3 up, 3 down, 3 up, 3 down, double bottom, and then we start to kick off the rally. So when you look at this, we're actually closer to the end than we are to the beginning of the quote-unquote bear market. Because remember, this coin, Rune, has been in a bear market since 21. So 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, right? That's 5 years going, almost probably 6 years. Where this was from 13 to 15. So it was only 2 years. So this is 5 years. This is a couple years. So that means that this is just going to take longer, possibly. So you could see how massive of a difference this is. I mean, look at Bitcoin. You have this giant move to the downside. But if you look at Bitcoin Cash, it's basically just chilling. And then if you look at it right here specifically, look at that. Right? So let's put a line from where this thing started, right there. Wow. Look at the difference between the two. So we went down, but we have a higher low. We rammed to the downside and we just chilled right here. Didn't do anything. And then Bitcoin popped up a little bit, but so did Bitcoin Cash. And now Bitcoin's kind of coming back down a little bit, but Bitcoin Cash is still going up. So what does that mean? What that means is what happens when Bitcoin really starts to go up. If it's acting like this bullish right now, when Bitcoin is bearish, then what happens when Bitcoin is actually going in a retrace? For example, like this could be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. And then we start, working our way back into a retrace. If Bitcoin Cash is still as strong as it is like it is now, then we could see if Bitcoin did this, we could see Bitcoin Cash, you have this 3-way pullback, you're pumping here. We could see Bitcoin Cash have a legit breakout, like a legit breakout. And that's interesting. So, we've been in the bear market for 8 years, since 2018. So it's basically as if Bitcoin, so here's our C19 low right here. And it's as if Bitcoin Cash is the equivalent of Bitcoin being at like 10 or 12K. So that's interesting, right? And then you can't deny one of the most interesting things, the most interesting lines in crypto for me right now is Bitcoin Cash, because of how massive that line is. That's a huge deal. That's like if we go back to XRP, remember the most infamous downward resistance line on XRP? If I can find it real fast. I don't know why I'm up there. Okay. So this line right here, from there all the way down, this was our triangle. Remember? So when we broke that line, it was a real big deal. And, you could see what happened after that. So, in a weird way, XRP is a little bit more risky because it had this massive pump here, right? But simultaneously, it has a lot of support down here. So if we had to come all the way back down to, $1.30, that's where I think the low would be, between $1 and $1.30. I don't think we're going back below $1. At least I hope not. Can't say for certain, but based on everything we're looking at, I just don't see it. There's just too much support. So it would have to be a big event for that to happen. So if we go back to, did I have it over here? Bitcoin Cash. Remember, that's our downward resistance line. So that we just broke it, right? So we have, this is a really important line. 1, 2, 3, 4, and now 5. Over the last 8 years, with a 3-wave move, this is not just a chart breaking above a trend line. This is a 3-wave move here. And you got a 5-way move off the low, a 3-way pullback, and you broke the line, and you back tested it, and Bitcoin is dumping hardcore, and Bitcoin Cash is not following along. Instead, it's going up. And you're cupping into, let's put a little line there. There's our resistance zone, right? You're cupping into it, you're cupping into it, you're cupping into it, you're cupping into it. So you wanna, you're flagging, you're trying to break it again. I mean, come on, it looks like it wants to break out. Now, if it doesn't, it doesn't. It is what it is. But this is just what I see right now, and I don't think a lot of people are talking about Bitcoin Cash. Just like when they weren't talking about Monero, when Monero had a big, massive explosion. I think I was one of the very few channels even talking about it back when we were breaking out of the zone here. And I was explaining, like, people were bearish over here, but I was like, I don't know, Monero looks good, right? We had a big breakout. We had a 3-way pullback. We had a nice flat right here. By the way, this flat looks kind of like XRP in a way. Boom, 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 go. So, like, XRP, boom, boom, boom. Potentially we go. The only thing with Monero is we don't know if this is going to be. I don't like this wave here a lot. I mean, I do on the small time frames. It looks like a 1 2 1 2 1 2 really. I just would feel like you need a little bit of a flag right in here, unless this is going to be a flat, which would just take a lot long. It'd take longer. And it would probably be the best thing for it is taking a you got 1 2 1 2, is that 3 4 5, that's a 1, ABC, that's a 2, and then you're right at the cup of it, because you don't want it to break out right now, because you're coming from down here. You want to come from up here, so you want to pull back and then come, because then you'd be a shorter distance, and you wouldn't get as exhausted as quickly. The difference between running 4 laps versus running 2 laps, you're going to get more tired the more laps you go, the more distance you created for yourself. So the small time frames, I think Bitcoin Cash is probably the most interesting chart right now. There's a few other ones too, but it's going to require a little bit more. So let's get rid of let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that, and let's get rid of that. We can keep that. So yeah, it does look very corrective. Very corrective. Not really explosive like that. So it has me wondering, what is it doing? We do have a triple top, but triple tops are meant to be broken, right? So a top, a top, a top. And you could see when we hit the top, we had a massive move down. We come up, we hit the top, we have a massive move down. But look at what's going on now. We come up, we hit the top, and we're just kind of chilling right here. And we're just kind of chilling, while Bitcoin is dumping crazy, you would think, right? So let's see what happened over here. Oh, okay, yeah. So that's when Bitcoin was flagging down here. We had that big crash. Bitcoin, big crash. And then we have a big crash, but look at Bitcoin Cash, it's not. So that's something we gotta keep an eye on. But let's not get too excited, because what we don't know is if this is a 3-way move here. So we have 3 down, we have 3 up. Is this going to be 3 back down, or even 5? And then we go up and it becomes a bigger 3? That's what I don't know. And that's what I'm waiting to find out. Or are we just going to break out? I mean, that's the question, right? That's the question. I think it's coming. So Bitcoin, XRP versus Bitcoin, I don't really like that. I mean, I'm thinking like 1, 2, 3. You see how it's going up. If this was going down, it might be a little better, but you could look at 1, 2, 3, 4, and let's get 5. So 3, right? 5. And then, like Rune and Theta, they've been beaten up here. You got bullish divergence. You can't deny that right there. So, when things get too explosive and exhausting to the downside, right? Like if you look at this crash right here, this happened in a blink of an eye. But look at this right here. It's not as bad, but it's actually worse because it's taking longer and people feel the pain more, right? It's like, the difference between ripping a Band-Aid off and applying a small amount of pressure over a long period of time. The Band-Aid hurt more when you ripped it, but this small amount of pressure doesn't hurt at all, but then you apply it over time, it gets very annoying very quickly, right? So, yeah, it's looking like it's getting exhausted. So to me, we need like either a spike. If we get a spike, then I'm going to look for a crash. It's pretty simple. But if we kind of chill out a little bit and we get an actual 5-way move off of that, then I would look for a 3-way pullback, because we got away from the scene of the crime. Now we developed a cup, right? See how it comes down and you spike, you come down and you spike, you're going to crash. But if you come down and you round out and you create a cup with a 5-way move and a 3-way pullback, that's going to look better. So it's all about how it's going to react here next week. We did break this line. We broke this downward resistance line here. I mean, there's a couple of them here, but we could come back up to this line up here, right? We broke out, we back tested it. Could be a little inverse head and shoulders in here. So, but as far as theta goes on the larger time frames, I mean, if we look at it on regular scale, it looks pretty killed, right? I mean, it doesn't look like you have too much more. I mean, just look at this thing. This is a hyperwave. Boom, and then it returned back. And then you had 3, and now you're coming down again. So you're right at the end here. You're right at the end for this to be in a depression, for this to come back. So don't think that, oh, we got another 4-year bear market. I don't really see that. If I did, so what's this? This is 21 to 25, okay? And if I take this and I say, oh, we're going to do another bear run, I mean, that doesn't even make sense. That would be 2030. Forget the line. The line doesn't mean anything. But that would be how long it would take. And I just don't really see that at all. Or if it was 4 years, we could say 2 years. So 27, 28. Yeah, so it'd be 28 right there. 2 years. Worst case scenario. So that would be like a depression, maybe a double bottom in here, and then a rally back up, and then you build your base down in here. It just all depends how big the base is, right? And you want a big base, but you also want the price to hurry up, right? So it's kind of like, you know, I would also pay attention, very close attention to this line right here. If I can get it to do what I want it to do. That took way longer, but look, yeah, so I want to see it chill out. So that's how big the base I would like to see. And you can see if we put a little box right here, that's about March. So you're looking at March, April. So that's the timeline. March, April. So I would love to see crypto break out, go into a retracement sometime in the spring, and spend the rest between now and then going sideways and then breaking out and then getting that retrace. And then we could still continue the bear market, right? But I think at that point, I don't really see why we would for certain coins. So the price action is not a mystery. What's a mystery is what Trump and the administration is going to do as far as their approach on crypto and the banks and the Fed and all of that, the stock market. So the economy, that's the tricky part, because I could see both sides. But either way, I'll tell you what, even if we do have a big situation where Trump goes head to head with the central bank, the Federal Reserve, because that's what it's all about. It's about transitioning this economy. I want to tell you something. Look at this. I was watching this right here. It's one capitalist versus 20 anti-capitalists. So the anti-capitalists don't understand anything, but there's the thumbnail right there. So what I would say to that is the capitalist is mostly right, but they're both wrong in a way. So the reason why the socialists are they're anti-capitalist is because they think capitalism is the problem, when they're really retarded and they're stupid and they don't understand that is not the problem. See, they're right in the fact that there is a problem, right? The main reason they're communists, the main reason they're socialists, the main reason that they don't like capitalism is because they believe that is the enemy. They believe that is why everybody is poor and everybody is broke and there's an affordability crisis, and we need to get rid of that. And the billionaires need to give all their money away, and they have to tax the billionaires even more money. And that's not the answer. The reason why we have all of these problems is because we don't live in a people system. We live in a central banking fiat currency debt enslavement system. So it's not capitalism that is the problem. It is the central banking system that is the problem. You have a system that prints money out of thin air. They loan it to the government with interest attached. Then we, the taxpayer, have to pay it back plus interest. What sort of rigged deal is that? It's totally a scam. So all of those people like debating that guy, if I was there, I would have jumped in. I would have said, all you motherfuckers are wrong. You guys have no idea what you're even talking about. And they act like they're smart, and they talk like they're smart, but they don't really know what they're saying. And it's very sad that they think that capitalism is why everyone's broke, when in reality, it's the system we live in. It's not capitalism sparks the economy. Right? And they talked about incentive, right? Why would I start a business if I'm not going to reap the millions and millions of dollars that I can get for a reward? Right? If there was no incentive, nobody would start a business. There would be no creation of anything. Capitalism is what sparks everything in terms of diseases and finding cures and finding solutions and all these different things. And then they don't like capitalism because they think it's evil, because it's the root of all evil, when they're really stupid. They're really, really retarded. They don't understand that that's not the problem. Capitalism is not the problem. The problem is the money. The money is broken. You take out, like, what is the number one problem with these young people? These gawky, young, weird motherfuckers, excuse my French, but they really piss me off because they're so arrogant, and they don't know anything, and they act like they know everything, and they don't. And it's just hilarious. And that's why you have the capitalists and the socialists, but they're both not what we should be focusing on. Capitalism doesn't work for me or you inside of the system we live today. But if we lived in a decentralized, a gold-backed system, a crypto system, something where your money was actually worth something, and your labor, when you go to work, you work a job and you earn money, and you can't even afford to the apartment, the houses, the this, the that, and the socialists like, oh, that's capitalism. No, it's because our money is broken. We have inflation. It's the Federal Reserve. Not one person mentioned the Federal Reserve in that. And I couldn't even watch it all. I was sick to my stomach because I couldn't listen to these idiots spewing out what their college professors are spewing out. That's why I never went to college. College is in some situations, it's a disease. They're indoctrinating brainwashing these people. They have no clue what they're talking about. So that's why we are always talking about crypto, because crypto is the solution to gold, and crypto are the solutions to capital, or to socialism, to capitalism, to all of that stuff that they say that is the problem when it's not the problem. Right? So they think, well, I can't afford my apartment. I have to work 3 jobs. My mom has to work 2 jobs. My dad has to work 55 jobs in order for us to pay the mortgage, in order for all 15 of us to live in the same house. And we blame capitalism for that. And then the other side will blame socialism for that, when they're both wrong. They're both totally wrong. The reason why they're all broke and nobody can afford anything is because the money is broken. It's just like the Zimbabwe dollar, right? You're a trillionaire. It's inflation. You can say, oh, well, we have low inflation compared to the rest of the world. Yeah, but the rest of the world is shit too. They also have inflation. And that's why everybody's trying to come to the United States. Because it's not like you could say there's more opportunity, but in reality, it's the money is better compared to the rest of the world. Right? So if I bring my US dollars to Mexico, I can live pretty damn good in Mexico, because their currency is way weaker than our currency. But if you live in the United States, the prices are a lot more money, and it's more expensive to live here. So they say, oh, you got to raise the minimum wage. But that doesn't solve anything. If I give you $5 more an hour, then that means everything else is going to go up the same amount. The gas, the groceries, the rent, the electricity, everything else will also go up. So if you pay a McDonald's employee $50 an hour, how much do you think fries are going to cost? It doesn't make any sense. No one's going to buy it. It doesn't work. You can say, well, then what's the solution? The solution is the system we live in, right? It's just like Trump. This is why we have Trump, because he's part of the Great Awakening. He just said, and I've predicted this years ago when nobody was talking about it, which is what? Which is getting rid of the income tax. People have no idea what it's like when you're going to have this massive transfer of wealth, right? You got to get rid of the income tax, and you replace it with tariffs. We had income tax to pay for the Civil War, but the Civil War is over with. So, these anti-capitalists think that the rich should pay more taxes, when in reality, you could charge rich people 50,000 times more taxes. Guess what? You're still going to be broke. You're still not going to afford that. You're still not going to afford anything. So charging rich people more money isn't going to do anything, because the government wastes all the money anyways. All the tax dollars that the government receives from us, what do they do with it? They totally waste it. So you could charge them even more and they're just going to waste it on stupid things, like things that make no sense at all. Like, Doge. Remember Elon Musk and Doge? The Department of Government Efficiency. Look what all the crap they found. And that's just a little tiny sliver of all the crap that goes on. So what is the main problem that these retarded anti-capitalists don't understand? The first thing is corruption. The second thing is treason. And the third thing is an unconstitutional Federal Reserve banking system that has total control over our entire democracy. That's the problem. How do we get rid of it? Trump signs an executive order ending the Federal Reserve Act. You take the power of the Fed and you transfer it to the Treasury. Then you take gold and you back the currency, the new currency, the real U.S. currency, because we don't have a U.S. dollar. We do not have a U.S. dollar. We have a Federal Reserve debt note. That is a bank note. That is not part of the government. That is not part of our Constitution. That is not part of our founding fathers. That is not part of anything except a private bank. So why do we allow a private central bank to control our multi-hundred trillion dollar monetary system? Why do we allow it? They act like they don't do nothing. They do everything. Right? And this is where politics comes into play, because politicians, it's not in politicians' best interest to call it out, because it's not political. The Fed is not political. It's a bank. Right? Where Trump, he gets up on stage and instead of blaming the Fed, he blames the Democrats. And yeah, the Democrats are the problem too. But if you really want, and that's part of the optics and that's part of the strategy, right? And taking the Fed down, you can't just come out and say, oh, I'm going to come after you. And you got to allow the Fed to kind of fall into its own trap and then expose them instead of hitting them first. You know what I mean? So the Fed is very careful about how they do that. So if you really want to know if these capitalists, these anti-capitalists, need to watch this documentary right here. It's 3.5 hours long, but it'd be 3.5 hours more so than 150 hours with their retarded college liberal professor that doesn't know anything. Watch The Money Masters. This is a full documentary, and you're going to be completely blown away.
In circulation expanded. Money was plentiful. People took out more loans to expand their businesses. But then the money changers would tighten the money supply. They would make loans more difficult to get. What would happen? Just what happens today. A certain percentage of people could not repay their previous loans and could not take out new loans to repay the old ones. Therefore, they went bankrupt. And
that's the scam. That's the scam. Look at 2008. Look at the Great Depression. We still never were able to recover for that. How does the central bank become powerful? They print a lot of money and they prop the market up. And then people buy in and then they push it up and then they bring it down. And then they take all your money. And then everyone capitulates. And then they do the same thing again and again and again. And each time they do it, they're stealing massive amounts of wealth through boom and bust cycles. You have a boom cycle, you have a bust cycle, you have a bear, you know what I mean? So this is how they've mastered how to do it, how to keep the system going, right? Because it's easy money. That's why the US is so dominant well, first of all, it's our military, right? And we basically, why do we pay an income tax when the Fed can just pay it for us? You know what I mean? Why can't the Fed fund the government? Why do taxpayers have to fund the government? If all they do is print it out of thin air, then why do we need them? Right? So it's the monopoly that the US dollar also has, and it's another reason why it's hard for patriots like Trump to transition us, because what happened, you create a big risk. This is the biggest thing ever, which is what? The money system. It's what makes everything work. It's what makes the US so powerful. So if you change that system, you could threaten the power, unless you have the gold. He who has the gold makes all the rules.
Had to sell their assets to the goldsmiths for pennies on the dollar.
Well, gee, who said that before? The golden rule in negotiating success. He who has the gold makes the rules. So who has the gold? We do. And that's the problem, right? It's not these greedy capitalists, which they are problems. There are very greedy capitalists, and I think they should do revenue sharing. I think they should pay their employees more. I think there are a lot of greedy capitalists, but that's not the real issue. The real issue is much, much bigger than that in terms of greedy capitalism. It's more so the greedy central banks. You know, why would you attack someone who created a business out of nothing, is employing thousands of people? All those people can feed their families and give their kids Christmas presents, all because they work at a job that somebody created out of nothing. Why would you attack that person? Oh, because he makes too much money. Well, of course. Look what he built. He deserves it. So why would that be the problem? That's the best thing for the United States, is more people. It's because these young people can't start businesses because they complain that, it doesn't work for them. And they have a right to complain. I think these people, me and those people and Trump and we all want the same thing. But our solutions are different. Like, their solution is to get rid of capitalism and just have communism and socialism, where everybody gets everything the same. And who would want to live that crappy life? That would be really, really, really bad, unless you're homeless and you have nothing. But if the civilization really wants to change, they have to change the money. And this is why we talk about crypto. I'm just not another TA guy talking about crypto, another crypto channel, another crypto. No. This is bigger. This crypto is much bigger than we really, really think it is. They think, oh, it's some internet money. It goes up and it goes down and it's cool and it's... No. This is the solution for all the world's problems, and we don't even realize that yet. So you think I'm going to sell my crypto because of some stupid bear market that we've been through many times? No. Now, I can take my profit, but I will always redeploy that back into crypto, because crypto is the only thing that is our safety boat. It's our safety net. So, the most important thing you can get is cash on hand, crypto, gold and silver, guns, ammunition, and food. Lots of food and water. And all you need is those things, and you'll be fine for whatever storm that comes upon us. And that storm and you say, well, there's not going to be a storm. Well, you said this, everyone said the same thing about COVID. Oh, there's not going to be no COVID lockdowns. That's crazy. That's something out of a movie. Oh, well, it actually happened. And then people were like, whoa. So you don't think it can happen again, but it's different? But something different, not a pandemic, but something like a financial problem, right? And if we do have that financial problem, it's going to be all by design because that's how Trump is going to expose it. See, Trump can't really go after the Fed. He could call Fed pal too late, and he's like, too late. Well, the only reason you would say somebody is too late is because it's too late. It's over, and we're going to crash. So why does he call Jerome Powell too late? If you get in a car accident, you can say, oh, well, it's too late. Well, guess what? The accident already happened. So does that mean, if Jerome Powell lowers rates right this second and Trump comes out and says, well, it doesn't matter, you're still too late, so that means a crash is coming, right? So
has lifted more people out of poverty than any other system.
So I would argue that governments have actually lifted the most people out of poverty. If you look historically, we look at China, for instance, had the most significant poverty reduction in all of human history.
I can't watch it because they're so brainwashed, they're so stupid, they have no idea what they're talking about. If you really want to lift people out of poverty, it's not government, right? Government can't do anything. The only way, basically what these people want, what these losers want sitting around
they pulled
the
800
room,
million people out.
What these losers want sitting around the room is for rich people to pay 50,000 times more taxes, and for them to fund all of their food, their housing, their books, their whatever. And it's like, no, that's not the way it works. And that's their solution because the system is broken. I agree with this clown right here and all the other clowns. I agree. The system is broken. I totally agree. It is broken. But it's not capitalism. Capitalism is the one thing that's keeping the system from completely dying. When in reality, the professors, the fake news, the deep state, the Democrats, all of the left make people believe that capitalism is the problem. You know why? You know why the deep state perpetuated that propaganda, and that's why these little imbeciles are spitting it out? You know why that is? Because the politicians want the rich people to pay more taxes so that the government can get more money so that they can spend it on more programs and get more kickbacks. Dun, dun, dun. And these losers have no clue what they're talking about. And you say, why are you talking about this? This is supposed to be crypto. What do you think I'm talking about? Yes, it's politics in a way, but it's about crypto. So if you really want to end poverty, if you really want to make the world a better place, you're not going to steal more money away from people who earned it. Because that never worked. You look at every communist country in the world, it doesn't work. So the reason why people want it is because the system is broken. But if you introduce a new system, right? So yeah, I think, we need major banking reform, and we need to take all of the debt and figure that out, because that's really, we're what, $37 trillion in debt, or 38? Let's just say 40. I remember not long ago we were 20 trillion in debt, and everyone talked about that for a while. But now we're 40 trillion in debt. So it's just numbers on a screen. It's a click of a mouse. All the markets are controlled by computers and derivatives. It's just a click of a mouse, just like what Bix Weir says, right? And it's totally true. And that's why we see silver breaking out. And that's what these idiots don't understand. They don't understand how markets really work, how the economy really works. And it's pretty sad. And I've never went to college, but I listen and I read a lot of books, and I do a lot of research, and I don't listen to professors who think they know it all when they actually know nothing. So what is the moral of all this? The moral of everything I'm saying here is that the solution to all the world's problems is staring you right in the face, guys. It's right here. It's XRP. I'm just kidding. It's crypto. It's crypto, right? But yeah, XRP too, for sure. So it's crypto. It's sound money, right? It's sound money. It's real money. So the moral is, eventually, buying crypto means that you're opting out of the central banking system and you're protecting yourself against the inevitable, which is the collapse of the dollar and the collapse of the banking system. And then once that happens, we will transition away from that system. Because if we had a massive recession or depression or whatever, who do you think Trump's going to blame? Trump's going to blame the Fed. And he's going to come out and see, I told you, Jerome Powell, you didn't lower rates. I told you he was too late. I told him to lower rates all year. He didn't listen. I told him he did not listen. And everyone's going to be like, you're right, Trump. You're right. You did say to do that. And you're right. Jerome Powell did not listen. So everybody's going to blame the Fed. Trump will blame the Fed. It's all about, guys, this whole story, everything we've seen for the last 10 years involving everything, the Middle East, China, trade, tariffs, immigration, crypto, gold, it's all under one thing. It's all under one thing, which is what? Fixing the financial system, rebirthing a new financial system. So that's why I don't really care about bear markets per se, right? We have to look at the bigger picture, right? So Bitcoin, definitely a bull market, definitely looks like it could be going to a bear market, but the real stars are the altcoins. And, in my opinion, once this system really starts to break and crack, because this system can't go on forever. Again, we're $37 trillion in debt. It doesn't make any sense. It's all an illusion. It's smoke and mirrors. It's a fake economy. It's a fake system with fake numbers, and they're all inflated, all because of derivatives, which derives value from things and they put multipliers on it, right? If I could go onto Binance and trade XRP or the stock market with 50x leverage, and everybody's doing 50x leverage, how does that make real sense? How does that give you an accurate analysis of what really is happening when everything is overinflated and hyperinflated and with these ridiculous leverage, and it's just too much leverage? And that's what creates cracks in the system, and it's not going to last, right? So what do? You accumulate. People say, oh, I don't want to buy the dip. You're not buying the dip. When crypto comes down, you're not buying the dip. What you're doing is you're taking a Federal Reserve debt note and you're transforming it into XRP. That's what you're doing. You're not buying crypto. You're transforming it into crypto. Right? You're trading it for crypto. So it's not like I'm buying, a cheeseburger and I just ate it and it's gone forever. No, I'm buying crypto and I'm holding it forever until, because when the system really gives way, what are going to be the solutions? Well, if the system cracks and breaks and Trump calls out the Fed and we transition to a new system, what system do you think that's going to be? It's going to be crypto. There's no other option. And what do you think is going to happen when that happens? Crypto is going to go crazy. It's going to explode because everybody's going to be trying to get it, but it's going to be already too late. So that's why we shouldn't care too much about it. Everybody's so focused on the price, bear market, bull market, bear market, bull market, price. And that's very, 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 very important. But also the utility value is important. what's happening with Trump and the Fed and the economy. That's very important. How we're going to transition to a new system. That's important, right? This financial system is really, 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 really old. You know, Trump's building a ballroom. He's doing all these upgrades. Like, look at the transportation. He's doing all of that stuff. So you don't think he's going to fix... He's a builder. You don't think he's going to build a new financial system? The most important thing on the planet? Right? The president is responsible for the people's economy. The banks are responsible for the monetary economy. But the monetary economy is the one that's broken. And because it's broken, these anti-capitalists think that it's the capitalists' fault that is why they're broke and they can't afford anything, when in reality, it's a dying money system. And they have no clue. Because they're retarded. I mean, I don't know. I don't get it. I would love to debate one of these losers. Please. Please. But you guys that are listening, I appreciate everybody for listening. You guys are very intelligent because you get it. You understand it. Right? And it sucks. It sucks that we live in a world where money is so incredibly powerful, where it basically dictates everything, you know? I mean, just think about like people's friendships. You know, people could be friends with somebody and they could be total enemies over $50. Oh, you owe me $50. You're my enemy now. You know, it's pretty crazy, the power of money. And that's what it's really about. So every time you hear any politician speak, just think about money. Think about in the context of money and power. That's what it's always about. So anyways, that's about it for this video. It's more of a rant than anything. But yeah, XRP on the small time frames. I mean, you're building a little bit of a base here. I'm wondering if might get a little bit of a wave 4. Possibly. I mean, it looks like 1, 2. This looks like 3. Maybe we get 4 and then 5. And then we have 3, 3, and 5. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, A, B, C, 2. And then we can see if we can come back to the top of the range. Or if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's done. Maybe we get some kind of a retrace. It's the weekend, so I wouldn't expect anything too crazy. So, that's about it. I wanted to get a little video out. My mom's coming down to visit, and just for the day. She's going to a funeral, and so anyway, I will catch you guys. Remember, none of this is financial advice, and let's see how it continues to play out. And this journey is not over, not even close. So people who think, you know, you own THETA and you're sad that the price is down, or any crypto, you're sad the price is down, but just know that it's not going to be down forever. And the more you focus on your life and working and getting money, getting paid, the more you can invest. And don't even think about the price, because it's all about how many coins you have relative to what the price is, right? And since the price is so damn cheap, this is the best time to accumulate as many coins as you can, because this down wave is not going to last forever. Eventually we're going to level out, and eventually we're going to go back up. So whether that happens now or a little bit later, well, it should be in that vicinity. So we should start thinking about that. So anyways, I will catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.